So much of my personal journey over the last year has been about understanding myself as being trans non-binary. As much as I believe that my name has always been Willow, I think it's also really important for me that I had to claim my name. It was in the middle of the pandemic and I was watching so much suffering in the world, and I was coming to terms with so much of the suffering that had been living inside of me that I had not been dealing with for a really long time. When I started to look into willow trees, one of the first things that I learned is that they're a healing tree. Their bark is a source of medicine, and of course when I read that the first time, I started to cry immediately because I saw the threads and the connection to my work, how much of my time I spend writing about and researching trees, and of course my name was always a tree. I was always a tree. Hi, I'm Willow Defebaugh. My pronouns are they and them. I am the editor-in-chief of Atmos magazine, and we are here in my apartment in Greenpoint, Brooklyn today. Atmos is a climate and culture publication aimed at telling stories about the environment through a lens of the humanities. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Whether that's stories told by the people who are impacted most by the climate crisis, or telling stories through a lens of art and design and creative storytelling, such as poetry and prose. It was really born out of a question, which was, why have stories about the environment always been told in such a specific way, which was always so clinical and factual and purely scientific. We love science. Science is the root of everything that we do, and we also know that if we want to reach people at a deeper place, we need to connect with them on an emotional level, a psychological level, and a spiritual level. If there's one thing that drives my work, I would have to say that it's holism. I think everything that I do and all of the stories that I work on are really aimed to get people to understand that they are a part of a larger ecosystem. Everything is in a fractal conception, and a fractal conception means that for something to change on the small scale, it's going to also change on the large scale. And likewise, when something changes on the large scale, it will change on the small scale. And there's a great sense of empowerment that comes with that, because when we start to actually embody our values and we start to really live our truth, that has a ripple effect on our relationships. We change and our environment changes. Our environment changes and we change. One of the questions I most frequently get asked in this space is, do you have hope for the future? And my answer is always, yes, that I do, because all of the solutions that we need to get us out of this mess already exist in nature. Deep ecology is a field that looks at the dynamics and relationships within nature and then says, well, what can we learn about ourselves from those dynamics and relationships, and how can we emulate and embody them in the actual world? And sometimes the field is called spiritual ecology as well, because it's understanding that the threads that connect different species, different flora and fauna within nature are also spiritual. And there's things that we can glean from these dynamics and these natural processes of the world to actually teach us. It's like she's telling us our way forward. So if there is a problem that humanity needs to overcome, it's a problem of listening. Because all of the tools are there. All of the systems and processes and dynamics and developments that exist naturally on Earth are just things that we need to embody and emulate. In my conversation with Dr. Suzanne Simard, who is a brilliant forest ecologist in the new issue of Atmos, we discussed the question of what it means to be part of a living whole. And for me, what that really means is understanding that we all have a specific role to play. If you look at a human body, there is a heart, there is a brain. All of these parts are us, and yet they all have an individual function. Nature really mirrors itself on every single level. So if we take that idea and we apply it to human societies, to ecosystems, we start to understand that we all have a specific role to play. There are the storytellers, there are the photographers, there are the organizers. Every single one of those roles is vital. And so often when people come to this space and they think, well, what can I do? How can I help this movement? I encourage them to look at what they're most passionate about. Because what is passion? And I think they're directives to teach us how we can be a part of the ecosystems that we're in and how we can help to heal them. I often come back to the analogy that no one has to tell a bee to pollinate flowers. No one has to tell a tree to breathe in carbon dioxide. These are part of their nature. And just as they're part of the nature of different flora and fauna and ecosystems, we all have natures. We are all moved and called to do different things. Can we listen more deeply to where our passions are guiding us? Because that can inform what we can bring to this movement and to everything that we do. To me, transness is the ultimate embodiment of nature because nature is a force of transformation and evolution. In the human, specifically a Western human conception, we think of identity as being something that is fixed, something that cannot be changed. But our identities are actually made up of so many different factors. This is something Dr. Simard illuminated for me, is that even what we consider to be our personalities, our beliefs, and our ideas, they're amalgamations of all the different relationships and communities and stories that we've been a part of in our lives. And those things evolve and they change, and we should give ourselves the permission to explore every aspect of ourselves, to embrace the fluidity of nature. It took me a long time to understand what my journey as a trans person has to do with my work in the climate movement. What I eventually realized is that for me, trans is short for transcendent, as in transcending duality, transcending binary thinking. And if we are to make our way out of the climate crisis, it will only be through transcending binary thinking. I don't think there's anything more beautiful than authenticity. And so to me, being a beautiful person means being an authentic person. It means allowing the truth of who you are to radiate in every single thing that you do. I hope that my work gives others the space to dream with pride by virtue of the understanding that there is a space for us, not just in the climate movement, but in every single movement, because we have always been here and we will always be here.